Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I've been working on a group of reels that Fielding up in Connecticut has sent me. Here's a Penn 500 reel in a bag project. We're going to take you through the thought process on reel in a bag projects and how to manage them, how to put them back together again, how to take an inventory of the pieces and parts, and to make sure that, well, you can put this one back and keep it fishing again. So this one apparently has lost the side plate adjuster for one thing to start, and who knows what else is in there. So one of the things I always like to do when I start these things is look at where the Jigmasters were made. This is an American made one, and not that there's much difference there, but it's always nice to know which ones are which. I have a bag labeled conveniently as parts. I have a reel loaded with line, and that line tends to get in the way, so what I like to do is I like to clip some of that off so that it doesn't trap itself inside the frame. Then I like to put a rubber band on it just to kind of hold it in place. What I will recommend to Fielding is that this line be replaced. I don't know the age of the reel, the line on the reel. I kind of have an idea of where the age is. And well, we got to find a part for this to start with. What we have, this is probably why it wound up in a bag. We have an eccentric, which the spring is not loaded on, so we'll take care of that. And then let's do an inventory here, because you're never quite sure what you get in these, and you know what you have to have in order to complete the reel. The reel needs the bearing on this side. The rest of the frame appears to be complete. All of the screws are there. We have to service that. We need a bridge. Here's a bridge assembly. And looks like it has all the drag washers in it. We'll come back to that. Looks like it has a misinstalled or just kind of a laying around anti-reverse dog here. Not quite sure what's going on with that, but that appears to be right. Then what we want to find out is the yoke and gearing assembly. Well, we have the jack. We have the yoke. That's always good. You need the pinion gear. You have the pinion gear. You need the yoke springs. We have those. You need the gear sleeve, we have that. You need the star adjuster, you have that. What we don't, well, we have a couple of other things in here that are kind of interesting. I think this belongs to the other project that I saw, which was a 506. And we don't have a handle. We have the bridge screws. Right? So I think we got enough that we can put this together short of that handle. We'll have to go find him a handle. So let's get started. We'll show you how to do that, and hopefully by the time we're done with this, we'll have a functioning Jigmaster, and you'll have an idea of how to work on the Jigmaster, reassembling it, and kind of correcting some issues along the way. Well, you saw that I dumped all of those pieces and parts into a parts tray, and that's always a good thing for me in terms of trying to keep the logic and the order of these together, because, well, I don't want to lose them down the road. I have a nut holding on this eccentric. That's the first thing. And how convenient, right? I have my ratchet with the nut there. Well, I more than one time have a need for that, so I just leave that close to my case. Sometimes you're going to find that these eccentrics have the nut. Sometimes you're going to find out that it has a screw. Doesn't matter much. The process of setting the eccentric is the same. This one needs to lodge in the little V shape here, not back there. That's why it's not working. In order to do that, you generally have to lift up, pull it out, align it properly with that slot, then put it back in like that. And what you're going to find is you're always going to be way out of alignment with that. So the best way to do that, if you have some hand strength, is to push it down and to turn it until you find an equilibrium. That equilibrium's right there, and that'll show that you have the ability to come back to this side and put that lever back on. Before we do that, I have a little scrubby pad here with some rod and reel cleaner on it. I want to get the junk at least off from behind there. And you got to be careful. That equilibrium doesn't stay there forever. So before I go too much further, let's get that arm back on. And I think we just solved problem number one. which is the faulty trip lever, free spool release lever, and I'm guessing that's probably why this one wound up as it did. Maybe that spring broke, or maybe it just got misaligned. But now you can see you have tension on the lever, and that's a good thing. All right, while I have that scrubby pad with the rod and reel cleaner on it, I'm just going to take off the rest of the kind of the film that's been on this, probably from sitting and use. I'm just going to let it lay there for a minute. We'll come back and buff that off in a moment. Same thing here. This is Penn rod and reel cleaner. It's kind of a cleaner and a wax all in one, and it does a nice job. You can see just right away how it just took off the old film. And it's not going to restore UV damage and things like that, but it is going to do a nice job cleaning. We're also missing that side plate bearing, so before I go too much further, I'm going to go into my parts bin, go ahead and get a bearing out there with the spring. Those are missing. And we'll put a little bit of grease into that cavity there. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease. And we'll just load this back in. And we've just solved two problems already, which may have sidelined this reel. All right, with those set to the side, we have to rebuild the gear side plate. And to do that, you need all the internal pieces and parts to be cleaned, inventoried, and set up there. So let's go to the bridge first. You want to remove the bridge basics, which is the whole gear system. And you saw the anti-reverse dog fall out, and we've kind of got the washers here falling out as well. Well, I want to do that because I want to remove the gear sleeve itself, because if you're going in and you're going to work on the reel, you might as well rebuild the reel completely. And that means getting the old greases and dirts out of the from under the gear sleeve. I'm trying to push through the pin. There's a pin that holds this on right now. Sometimes it's easier to do it one way versus the other. Let's see if we can push it out this way. I'm using a metal pick to do that, and sometimes you just need to tap it out. That looks like where we're going to be with this. So I'm just going to take a soft blow hammer, center my pin or my punch, and get it started by tapping it. Not an easy balancing act to do. And you can see how it started to come out now. And what you want to do there is you want to take a pliers, gently grip it, and you should be able to pull it out enough now. That you can remove the gear sleeve. You wanted to do that because we have old grease on there. We have old grease in the gear sleeve itself, and that's going to take away from the reel's performance. So let's go ahead, soak that. I'm going to grab a rag, paper towel, mop up the grease that I just kind of squirted down with WD-40. It's a penetrating oil. Any penetrating oil will do. I just happen to have that on my bench. And then clean the inside. You can see how dirty the inside was from the dried grease before you go about re-greasing the reel. I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel Grease for this. I recommend you only use real grease. I really don't care whose brand, just like the penetrating oil, but please use the real grease. Let's go find that anti-reverse dog. I think I saw it in here somewhere. Here it is. That came off the side. There's some little grease in that. Let's get rid of that. And then you can just kind of run that over. Get the spring set before you put the gear sleeve on. It's always easier to do it that way to me, but get your sleeve, your anti-reverse dog, your spring goes in that little cavity there. It's all right to be overextended at that point. And then what you do is you can pull up on that anti-reverse dog as you bring your gear sleeve on, just like that, and it sets relatively easy rather than having a wrestling match. Little oil on the stud where that goes. Get your pliers to pull that back in now. And when you do that, make sure that you clear the shoulder here so that you can get the main gear down over that ridge there. And we should be okay there. Let's take a look and see what we have inside here. We have that hard washer, which goes next. That goes right on top of the gear sleeve, like that. You can turn it now, make sure that your anti-reverse is working. Just be careful. This main gear holds that assembly in place from wobbling too much. I'll mop up the old grease that's on the back end of this. If you needed more, you could use that penetrating oil. And then you can see we have the old grease in the teeth here. So use a hard brush to pull that grease out. You'll notice I have a can of grease there. We're going to grease these drag washers. I switched over to a hard brass brush because some of that stuff was still sticking in there. That's a sign that it's been pretty old, but it's okay. All right, we have one more washer below. These washers have been changed. They're all in good condition, which is nice. Take the washer, get a little bit of grease on there. Use your gloved hand to rub it into the washer. You're going to put the main gear onto the shaft there. Then we'll put the first fabric washer in. This is a 6 drag washer system. It's going to line like this. You're going to have a keyed washer go on top of that first fabric washer, second fabric washer. Then you have an eared washer, the last of the washers behind it. So keyed washer goes next. I'm going to grab some more of that grease, rub it into the drag washers. Don't overload the drag washers. If they have too much on, you're going to squeeze it out. So just make sure you can still see the cross hatching when you're putting that in. If these weren't clean, go ahead and scrub them. We're going to get that piece down and load the last of the fabric washers. And load the top washer. And if you had a question on any of this stuff, you could go to the schematic diagram to see the burst diagram of how the pieces and parts come together. Okay, we've rebuilt the bridge. We just pulled out some of the parts to make the rest of this work. We're going to start with the yoke assembly. I'm going to get a little bit of grease onto the shoulders of the yoke. And then the pinion gear. The pinion gear is clean, unlike the main gear, which had all that dried grease in it. This one has no grease in it. Kind of unusual, but so be it. We have 2 springs that go under the yoke. And we have our assembly, the yoke and the pinion gear. Push down on that to compress the springs. And you can bring your jack over it to hold that in place, like that. And then take your Jigmaster bridge assembly and place that inside. Press everything down and make sure that you pull, or just use the jack to get the pinion gear through the hole in the bridge, and make sure that you're on the 2 studs on the side plate. There's 2 screws that are bridge screws that are threaded. They go on the bottom. Just like that. I just like to start them. I don't like to finish them yet, because there is some play in these bridges. Sometimes the screw holes don't line up. If you have them over those plastic studs in the side case, generally speaking, you get pretty close. But don't tighten it all down and find out that you have to come back and loosen them. Just leave them loose until you get all 4 started. And then you can go ahead and tighten them down. Just like that. All right. Before we go any further, let's turn this and make sure that we've got a gear that turns. That should be fine. Go ahead and grab the gear sleeve. Let's put that in. A little bit of cleanup here on this star adjuster. Just like that. Pretty sure we finished this after we put that eccentric back on, but it looks like I've also transferred some old grease, so it doesn't hurt to do that again. Doesn't take any time at all. There we go. Let's put the adjuster back on now. All right. Once you start that, if you find that you're spinning, you can just use a screwdriver to just kind of wedge to the bottom to hold your gear sleeve from spinning. Okay, before you go much further, after you've installed the star adjuster, come around the back, take a look, make sure everything's spinning nicely, which it is. And let's go ahead then and finish the assembly. And maybe we'll declare victory on this as a reel in a bag. So we had the issue here with the free spool eccentric being misinstalled or uninstalled. And that led us to go correct that, find all the pieces and parts, and show you how to reassemble those. I'm going to take this to the off position when we go to reinstall. Let's go ahead and bring that back. You want to tighten it up so that you can attach the lever screw here. And we can give it a try right now. There you go. So we have a functioning, with the exception of the handle, nice, easy, functioning Jigmaster reel. And, well, this one's got a second chance. We're going to go find a handle for it and put this one to good use. There's a little bit more cleaning I want to do. I want to get under here and clean off the chrome, but this was more about showing you the process and how to think through putting a reel and a bag back together again, and how to keep those reels fishing. So this one turned out very nice. It's ready to go back to fielding the fish. And like I said, a little bit more of cosmetic cleaning before we do that, and this one will be finished. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you've enjoyed that, please subscribe to the channel to see more like this. And to all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis from Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.